not real certain how in the world you lead into a man that everybody probably already knows. When you've been translated into 20 languages, New York Times bestseller list, you got 140 countries, give or take, that know who he is. I'll just tell you this: Franklin Covey is not a name that is absent from anyone who's ever done any type of leadership training. And today we have with us Sean Covey. And Benjamin Franklin has a quote that said, if you don't want to be forgotten, if you're soon dead and rotten, write something worth reading or do something worth writing. This man has done both. He has demystified, and his family has come along and demystified what it is to be a leader. It doesn't mean that something you're born with, something you are deemed worthy of by whatever origin. It is absolutely the truth that everyone can be a leader. You saw that today. We are so thankful to have with us Sean Covey. He is one of the most inspirational leaders in this time. And short of that, I'm not going to take up any more of your time, Sean. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I don't know if you can hear me. Can anyone hear me? Okay. So Chad, you sounded like Darth Vader to me right then. Everything you were saying was all muffled. So I'm hoping you can all hear me. And Christy, I can see you. Am I good? Okay. Wonderful. So thank you so much for the opportunity just to spend a few minutes with you after this virtual tour. I am so impressed with Vicksburg Warren School District and what they're doing there. And I have visited a few times this district, not in the last year, but before that. And I so admire I'll call it the collective teacher efficacy, that famous term that I see in spades in your district. Seriously, it's amazing because you all believe that by banding together and having a common vision, you can make things happen. And collective teacher efficacy is it, I'm telling you. So congratulations on the great work that you've done. And you've had a great virtual tour. The highlight is always the students, isn't it? And the amazing kids that they are. So I'll just add a few things and not go on too long. But I just want to start by saying that I have so much admiration for educators and for teachers and for what you do. I didn't plan on being in the education business. I got an MBA and I went into business. And I've been pulled into education, and maybe some of it comes from my father. My father was Stephen R. Covey, and he wrote the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And you can imagine, he was really famous when I was a teenager growing up, and he had all these great bestsellers. And you can imagine how often I was asked the question, well, hey, you're Stephen Covey's son. What was it like being raised in the Stephen Covey home? And I remember people I didn't know all the time used to come up to me and they would hug me, say, you're Stephen Covey's son? I can't believe it. Oh, your dad's book changed my life. And they would hug me and cry on my shoulder. And I'm thinking, are you serious? My dad? He's weird. Because when you're a teenager, you think your parents are so weird. And I felt that way too. And then when I got a little older, I read one of his books for the first time. And I thought, oh my goodness, he's matured so much. But my father, he was an educator. And he felt like it was the most noble work. And he actually was raised as his father owned a hotel. And his grandfather owned a hotel. He kind of started the hotel business. These weren't big hotels. They were kind of small hotels. And my dad was trained to be the next hotel operator. And he went to Harvard Business School when he was just 20 years old. And during business school, he discovered his passion for teaching. And so he came out of his school experience, and he said to his father, Dad, I don't want to run the family business. I don't want to run the hotel. And he goes, well, what do you want to do? He said, I want to be a teacher. And I want to unleash human potential. Even as a young kid, he had that vision. And so his father said to him, you know what, I never liked business myself. You go ahead and be a teacher. But so I was raised in a home of a mom and dad that so respected teachers and education. Every year, my mom would say to us kids, there were 9 kids, so I had to fight for any food or attention I could, everything I could get. But she used to say, we're going to have a teacher appreciation dinner. And everyone would select their favorite teacher. You know, if you were in grade school, you just go with the teacher you had, of course. But like in middle school and high school, people would pick their favorite teacher, and we would get together and have this dinner once a year. My mom would have a huge meal and would just honor the teachers in our lives. So that's how I grew up, with great respect for what you do. So please know how much I love and appreciate the work that you're doing with students. So what you saw today is really remarkable. And the process, as you know, many of you know, and some of you I know are learning more about this, is called Leader in Me. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about why I think Leader in Me works so well, and its origins. I think many of you know, but just to recap a couple of things that are important to know and to remember. The Leader in Me is organic. We didn't invent this. It started with A.B. Combs Elementary School in Raleigh, North Carolina. This was a school that was failing. It was about to be shut down as a magnet school, a school with a theme. They weren't doing well. And the superintendent said to Muriel Summers, the principal, we're going to demagnetize you unless you can attract more students, because it's not working. So she's desperate. She goes out. She goes to a 7 Habits workshop. She meets Dr. Covey. She says to him, can these 7 habits be taught to young kids? And he says, well, I don't know, why not? Why don't you give it a try and let me know how it goes? And Columbine had just happened. She goes to her staff, we're going to be shut down. What should we do differently? They go out and interview parents and employers. What do you want the school to teach your kids? And they said things like, we want them to be self-starters. We want them to show up on time. We want them to get along well with others. We want them to appreciate diversity. We want them to learn how to set and achieve goals. We want them to take on responsibilities and take initiative and learn how to resolve conflicts and so forth. All these life skills, these leadership skills, social emotional skills, call them what you will. This is what they said. So with that in mind, come up with this novel idea of creating a leadership model. This is what you're seeing in Vicksburg now. This is leadership model. And so they did this and reinvented their school and stayed open. And 3 years later, were named the #1 magnet school in the country. 50% free and reduced lunch, 28 languages spoken in the school, created this remarkable model. And I'm telling you, the first time I saw them about 10 years ago, I came home and I said, oh my goodness, Rebecca, my wife, I just saw the most remarkable school and we're moving to Raleigh because our kids need to go here. And she said, well, what was different? And I said, if I had to narrow it down to one thing, I felt that every teacher believed that every child was a genius. That's what I felt. It was, you could cut it with a knife. It was culture. It was, we believe in you. You're great. And so this is what happened in this school, is they created this remarkable school that now this Leader in Me model is now into 5,000 schools around the country, around the world, in 50 different countries. And it works for a few reasons. It works because of these paradigms, these foundational beliefs that there's genius in everyone, okay? And that everyone can be a leader, and that change starts with me. At A.B. Combs, it started with the teachers, the staff members. They had to learn to get along. They had to set a personal mission statement and a school mission statement. Their mission statement was to build leaders one child at a time. But it starts with the adults in the school. That's why this works. And at Vicksburg, it is lived by Chad and by Christy and by the teachers. And you feel that. You can feel it as students. You can feel it as parents. And it permeates. And it gets to the children. They see it modeled. This is one reason this works so well. These foundational paradigms and beliefs. Every child is a genius, and that change starts with me. And that our job is to empower students. I was just reading some of the comments about how people love seeing these leadership roles and the authenticity of the students in these roles, and that's key. This is what A Becomes did. As they said, Muriel said, "Why do we run the school? If this is a leadership school, and we believe these kids can do it, why don't we let them lead the school?" And so the idea of turning everything over to the kids and having leadership roles and responsibilities everywhere throughout the school, so that every child has a chance and the opportunity to use their skills and their best talents. That's so key. This works because of a common language. And I can't tell you the power of a common language to be able to say, hey, were you putting first things first? Were you seeking first to understand? And having this common language that's shared by the adults in the school and the students in the school makes such a difference as well. I have to tell you about a personal experience that I had. My kids now, I have 2 in high school. I've got 1 in middle school. But a few years ago, they were in elementary school. And the school my kids went to, we were going to public school, and then a new charter school opened just around the corner. And it was brand new, so everybody thought it would be good because it had a nice building. And it was just around the corner, so we thought, okay, it's just so close, we'll go there. And the first year, the principal was fired after 1 year. They hired a new principal. Second year, they fired the principal after 1 year. And the school wasn't very good, and we were about to pull our kids out because it just didn't feel right in the school. Something was missing. And I went to the new principal, and her name was Emma, and she was a 3rd grade teacher. She was going to become the new principal. And I said, Emma, you're going to get fired in 1 year. I know the people on the board, and they're mean. Unless you do something different. I had just come back from A Becomes. I had just seen this amazing model. And they said, I have frequent flyer miles I can't use. I have so many. I'll fly you back to North Carolina, and I'd like you to see the school. So she flew back with me, and she went through just what you went through today. It wasn't virtual, but it was a leadership day where the kids spoke, led the school, classroom visits. The students showed leadership notebooks and shared their goals. And she was crying the whole time. And she said, I didn't know you could run a school this way. And so she went back and she implemented this. She started the Leader in Me in her school, and it changed really fast, the culture, everything. I was there a few months into it. One of the teachers, I was dropping off something, and she said, oh, are you Mr. Covey? Are you the 7 Habits guy? And I said, yeah. She goes, thank you for bringing this program to our school. And I said, well, what's different? She said, well, we like each other now. We get along well. And it's not so much of what it's done to the students, it's what it's done for us as a staff, and how we get along so much better now. And we've resolved so many of our conflicts, and we have a common mission and vision. And it's made all the difference. Roland Barthes, the great educator, said this: the quality of the relationships that exist among the adults in the school has more to do with the outcomes of the students than any other factor. And I believe that so much. It's culture, it's the feeling of the school, it's how well the adults in the school get along that makes such a difference. So I think one of the key things that you've seen in Vicksburg is this belief that all the students have genius and potential and leadership. My father had a great quote that I'd like to share, and it's this: leadership is communicating to another their worth and potential so clearly they are inspired to see it in themselves. One more time: leadership is communicating to another person their worth and potential so clearly they are inspired to see it in themselves. It's a beautiful quote that first time I heard that, I teared up. My father shared that with me, and I thought, that's how you made me feel, Dad. You were so good at making me feel like I could do anything, even when I didn't believe in myself. But it's just a powerful idea. I want to tell you a story Excuse me. I'd like to tell you a quick story about how I learned this the hard way as a father. My son Nathan is now he just graduated recently from high school, and when he was young, he was terribly shy. He had social anxiety really bad, and as a kid, I remember getting him to school was often so difficult. Maybe some of you have experienced this before, but I had a really tough time just getting him to go to school. As a kindergartner, he probably went every other day. In first grade, maybe about the same. And in second grade, it was becoming even more of a problem. And I remember one time taking him to school, and my wife was with me, and we couldn't get him out of the car, and we had to tear his fingers off of the seats slowly. And I had to throw him over my back and walk him into the school. And the principal met me into the parking lot, about halfway out in the parking lot, and I handed him to the principal, and he carried him in. And I remember getting in my car and just crying because it was so traumatic. This was in second grade. That year, also, I signed him up for the baseball team. It took me about a week to talk him into playing baseball. And finally, he said, "Okay, Dad, I'll do it." And the big day came, and we got out of the car. And Nathan, he saw the coach, and he saw the other players. And he was so frightened by being in that social situation that he decided to play dead. And literally, he fell on the ground, face down, and just laid on the ground and played dead. We'd been reading books about bear attacks and what to do if you ever got attacked by a bear. And I think he thought, this is what I can do. And so I went and got the coach, and I said, "Coach, my son's really shy. Could you come help him?" And Coach Smith came over and said, "Nathan, hey, it's going to be okay. Come with me. These are good boys. We're going to have a good time this year." Nathan just laid there on the ground and wouldn't even look up at all and acknowledge the coach. After practice ended, he got up, walked into the car as if nothing had happened, and went home. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to have such a struggle with this boy. He's got such bad anxiety, he can't even go to school, and he can't even play on a team, and plays dead. It was just a few months later, I was at a football game, and Nathan was sitting in front of me, and he kept kicking the seat of the person in front of him, and it was really annoying the person. And he finally turned around and said, "Would you please stop your son from kicking my seat?" And I was so upset with Nathan. I was so frustrated with how difficult he was to raise. And I had these, I guess you could call them limiting paradigms of Nathan and his future. And I was so mad at him. And I leaned over and I grabbed his arm and I squeezed his arm and kind of, and said in a really mean tone, "Just stop it." And I just saw Nathan he just wilted, and he put his head down, and I could just see that I just kind of just destroyed him. And just by the way I was so curt and mean and the tone of my voice. And I felt so bad. I'm telling you, I had a flood of emotions and an epiphany when I looked at this little boy, and I thought to myself, my conscience spoke to me, and it was kind of like saying to me, how dare you treat your son this way, and how dare you think of him this way? Do you have any idea who this boy is? And he's got greatness in him, and if you'll just let him alone, think of him differently, it'll come out. It was such a strong experience. I went home and I told my wife what had happened, and I said, we've got to just believe in Nathan and that he's going to be fine, and let go and watch what happens. And so I had this, what we call a paradigm shift, where I saw Nathan differently, and I got a glimpse of his greatness and how wrong it was for me to think of him the way I was thinking of him, in a limiting way. And so things started to change, and I met with Nathan, and we said, "Hey, Nathan, this is a weakness." He goes, "You want to change?" "I do, Dad. I just get so nervous when I'm around people, but I want to make it a strength." I said, "Okay, I'll work with you." So we started talking about it, and he started getting a little bit better and started going to school a little bit more often, maybe 2 out of 3 days now. And then in fourth grade, he was asked to speak at the leadership day in front of 200 people live. And he came home and he said, "No way, Dad, there's no way I'm doing this. They just asked me because you're the 7 Habits guy." And I said, "Nathan, you can do this." And I thought to myself, boy, maybe he'll play Dad. But no, I thought he can do this. And so I wouldn't pull him out. He kept asking me, "Please call him and tell him I'm not going to do this," but I wouldn't do it. And I just watched. And suddenly one day he started preparing a speech. I didn't do anything with the speech. He just started preparing. And the day came, the big day, 200 people. It happened to be his birthday. Stands up in front of 200 people. He starts speaking about habit 5. He tells a story about how he had bad ankles and none of the doctors would listen to his problems. They'd just say, "Oh yeah, put a cast on it or wrap it or go on crutches." And then he said, finally, he found a doctor that listened. And he said, "Walk down the hall. Let me watch you walk." And he listened and asked all these questions. And he said, "For the first time, I felt understood." And that's what it means to do habit 5. During the middle of his speech, he panicked. And you could see him, his eyes, he stopped. He forgot what he was going to say. He looked around and I thought he was going to collapse. And all of a sudden he remembered and he pulled through and he did great. And he got a standing ovation. And I'm telling you, it was a big breakthrough for Nathan that day. And then he said, "Dad, I'm good at speaking." And then he got another speaking engagement. And they started going to school and everything changed. And in high school, he became the most outgoing, vivacious, life of the party person you've ever seen, and with a ton of compassion, because for years he just struggled with being around people and being in public, but became just a really outstanding, great kid. And I was just amazed to experience this myself, and to be reminded again that there is greatness in everybody, and sometimes we have to just be patient, and sometimes the problem is us. I was exacerbating Nathan's problem by my limiting paradigms of him. And when I had that epiphany and saw him differently, my wife and I really changed the way we treated him. We saw him, we ignored kind of the software that was operating inside of him and focused on the hardware, this greatness inside him that would come out over time. So that's the main message I want to leave you with, is that leadership really is communicating to another person their worth and potential so clearly they see it in themselves. And as principals, as school leaders, this is your responsibility, and this is your privilege, is to do that with other people. As a teacher, this is your privilege to do that with your students, is to help them see their greatness and to be patient with them and to see through their behavior and beyond their behavior to what they can really be and become. So anyway, I appreciate you inviting me today. There are so many challenges today with, I don't know, a divided nation. There's so many challenges with this, pandemic we're going through right now, all the changes that are being required, going virtual. It's tougher than ever before. And I believe in people in the end. I believe people are resilient, and I know that we can get through this. I remember reading a story about Sir Isaac Newton, and he was in the pandemic of 1665, the Black Plague of London, that was far more dangerous than COVID, and it was taking a lot of lives. And he was quarantined. He was going to Cambridge College, Trinity College of Cambridge at the time, and he was sent to Northern England to go home for a year. And while he was home for a year, he said, "I was able to think more deeply than ever before. I was able to do things I could never do before." And he said, that year became what I called my year of wonders. And during that year, he developed the foundational theories for calculus and optics. And that never would have happened, he said, he had not had that year of wonders and that time to think and to focus. And so this year has been hard for everybody. And I hope, however, that it's also caused us to rethink things and to maybe have our own year of wonders, maybe year of terribles, but also year of wonders. I know for me, I've been traveling so much before the pandemic. I have actually a few times just thanked God for not traveling because of the time I've been able to spend with my children. and have dinner with my kids. And it's made me rethink that when things are back to normal, I'm going to travel a lot less because it's not worth it. They grow up too fast. So I wish you my best. Thank you for the great work you're doing with these kids. Chad, thank you for the great work you're doing in your district. I admire you so much. And every one of these children is precious. You know that. And what you're doing with them to help them see what they can do and develop their own leadership capabilities is really remarkable. And you're a model for, I think, the whole country. I think if everyone could run their district the way you're running yours, and I know that you'd say, hey, it's a team, because it is, that we'd have a much better country. So wish you the best, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.